Welcome, I'm Shelley, and this is The Fresh Perspective. Today, I want to take you into the African savannah, into a tale that has been passed down through the ages. One of those stories that the elders told not just to entertain, but to warn. Settle in, this one will stay with you. In many African folktales, the tortoise is not wise. He is cunning, deceptive, patient, and dangerous. This is one such story. A story about lies, about reputation, about power, and about what happens when the person people believe decides to lie. It began on an ordinary morning, the kind of morning that gives no sign of what it carries. The tortoise was making his way down the path, slowly, as tortoises do, when he came across the antelope grazing by the roadside. He stopped. He looked at the antelope for a long moment, and then he spoke. "My friend, I want to give you a piece of advice. Pray. Pray hard. Pray that the one whom people will believe should never tell lies against you. Just pray." The antelope looked up from its grazing, puzzled. It blinked slowly and tilted its elegant head, and said, "Nonsense. Why should I pray for such a thing? If anyone lies against me, I will simply speak my truth. I will say, it is not so. People will hear my side of the story." The tortoise said nothing immediately. He only chuckled, a low, dry sound, like pebbles shifting in a dry riverbed. Then, slowly, he repeated himself, watching the antelope's eyes carefully as he did. "Pray that the one whom people will believe should not tell lies against you." The antelope laughed it off completely, waved a dismissive hoof, and went back to grazing. The tortoise smiled, a small, private smile, and they parted ways. Life continued. The sun rose and set. Weeks passed. But in the tortoise's slow, patient mind, a plan had already been born.
2 weeks after that quiet morning, the tortoise found himself walking past the lion. Now, you must understand something. In the jungle, protocol is law. When you pass the king, you greet him. You lower your head, you acknowledge him. It is not a suggestion, it is survival. But the tortoise walked on, chewing something with exaggerated delight, eyes head forward, jaw moving slowly, completely, deliberately absorbed in whatever he was eating, as though the lion did not exist. The lion blinked. He looked left, he looked right. Surely this was a mistake. Surely the tortoise had simply not seen him. Being in a generous and happy mood that morning, the lion decided to extend the first hand of grace. He called out warmly, "My friend, good morning. How are you today?" Silence. The tortoise kept walking, kept chewing, his eyes half closed in something that looked almost like ecstasy. The lion called again, louder this time. "Tortoise! Tortoise!" Nothing. Not a flinch, not a pause in step. And now the king's patience had its limit. He, the lion, ruler of all things, the name that silences the forest, had been ignored twice. He rose from his rock, his mane bristled, and with a roar that shook the leaves from their branches, he bounded forward and planted himself directly in the tortoise's path. "What is the meaning of this? You pass me without greeting, and when I call your name, you dare ignore me? Me?" The tortoise startled, or appeared to. He looked up with wide, apologetic eyes and pressed a claw to his chest in distress. He said, "My king, please forgive me. Forgive me completely. I did not hear you, I swear it. I was so completely lost in what I was eating. It is extraordinarily sweet. I lost all awareness of the world around me. Please, my king, here, taste it for yourself, please." The lion chewed, and the world around him seemed to soften, and said, This is remarkable. What is this? Where does it come from? I have lived in this jungle all my life, and I have never tasted anything like this." The tortoise lowered his eyes slowly. He leaned forward. His voice dropped to a near whisper, heavy with reluctance, as though he were about to betray something sacred. "My king, I was not supposed to tell anyone. I gave my word on it, but it comes from the antelope. It is a special excretion, something the antelope produces naturally, something he guards very closely and shares only with those dearest to his heart." "The antelope?" The lion pondered out loud. The tortoise nodded slowly, as though burdened by a secret, and said, "I spent 7 full months begging for this. 7 months, my king. I pleaded with him. I brought gifts. I returned again and again. Every time he refused. He guards this gift jealously. He shares it with no one. But please, I beg you, do not tell him I told you. I made a solemn promise. I swore on my own shell that I would never breathe a word of this to anyone. The lion was already standing taller, his chest swelling with quiet confidence. Do not worry, my friend, the lion said. The antelope respects me greatly. I am sure with a gentle word, a kind request from the king himself, he will not refuse. Tortoise replied, shaking his head very slowly, eyes full of concern. My king, I beg you to reconsider. The antelope will not do it. Not for anyone, not for any title, not for any crown. I say this with the deepest respect. The lion laughed, a full, rolling, generous laugh. He was the king. No one refused the king. And with that certainty resting comfortably on his powerful shoulders, he set off to find the antelope. The next day, the lion found the antelope by the riverside. Now, lions do not typically arrive with warmth, flattery, and sweet names. So when the antelope looked up and saw that unusual gentleness in the king's approach, that wide smile, that slow and careful gait, every instinct said, something is wrong. The lion, warmly, said, My dear friend, the most graceful creature in this kingdom, you know how I treasure you, don't you? You know that of all the animals, you hold a special place in my heart. The antelope smiled cautiously and dipped its head in respect. This was suspicious, very suspicious. The antelope, careful, sensing something, replied, My king, you are too kind. Is there something I can do for you today? The lion sat beside him, patted him gently, nodded slowly with all the patience of someone who expected only one answer, a yes, and said softly, tenderly, Please, relieve yourself for me? The antelope blinked. I beg your pardon, my king? The lion patiently repeated, Your excretion, my friend. I would like you to, please. The antelope stood very still. It was a strange request, a deeply strange request, but it was the king asking. So the antelope, though baffled, obliged. The lion tasted it cautiously, his nose wrinkled, bitter, pungent, the ordinary waste of an ordinary creature. The lion, still calm, but the warmth cooling slightly, emphasized, No, not that. The sweet one, the special one. Give me that. Now the antelope was genuinely confused. The sweet one? My king, I do not understand. I have given you what I have. The lion's jaw tightened. He composed himself. He was a patient king. He would try again. I know what I tasted. It was sweet. It was unlike anything in this jungle, and it came from you. So I am asking, please, give me that. By now, the antelope was genuinely distressed and said, My king, I truly do not know what you mean. Sweet? My excretion? I am telling you, there is no such thing. I have nothing sweet to give you, only what I have already given. The antelope went again. The lion tasted it again. Same bitterness, same foul and pungent smell, same impossible distance from the sweetness the lion remembered. The lion's expression changed. The warmth was gone now. Something harder had replaced it. The lion's patience collapsed entirely. I know what I tasted. I know where it came from, and I will not leave here without it. What followed was something the antelope would never forget and never fully understand. The lion no longer believed in gentle persuasion. He believed the antelope was withholding. And so began the most terrible and senseless punishment the antelope had ever known. Again and again the demand came. Again and again the antelope gave what it had, the only thing it had to give. And again the lion raged at the answer, because the answer was always wrong. The answer was always the bitter truth. When the lion was convinced there was a sweeter one being withheld. The antelope received blow after blow. It cried out, it pleaded, it tried to explain. But how do you explain the absence of something you have never possessed? How do you prove you are not hiding what you have never had? Bones cracked, the antelope bled, it fell, it rose, it was struck down again. Deep in his fury, something made the lion pause. He remembered, as clearly as if the tortoise stood beside him, those quiet words. The antelope will never do it, not for anyone. king of the jungle or not? The lion looked down at the broken, bleeding creature before him. One more blow and the antelope would be dead, and with its death, any hope of that sweetness would be gone forever. Reluctantly, slowly, with a rage that had no proper name, he stepped back and warned, "I will return, and when I return, you will give me what belongs to me." He turned and walked away into the bush, and the antelope lay in the dirt, broken, bleeding, and utterly bewildered, wondering what it had done, what it had failed to do, and why the king had come for something it had never possessed. A few days passed, and then, as though the universe enjoys its symmetry, the tortoise and the antelope met again on that same path, the same path where the warning had been given and dismissed.
The tortoise, with wide, innocent eyes, asked, "Oh my, what has happened to you? Who did this?" And the antelope, exhausted, still bewildered, replied, "The lion. I do not know what came over him. He kept demanding something. Sweet excretion, he called it. I gave him everything I had. He beat me for it anyway. What is sweet excretion? Can excretion even be sweet? I understand none of it." The antelope shook its head, lost in its own confusion. It went over the encounter again in its mind, the lion's strange warmth, the impossible demand, the senseless violence. It could make no sense of any of it. It suspected nothing, not the tortoise, not anyone. It simply could not understand what madness had overtaken the king that day. The tortoise listened to all of it. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. A low laugh at first, then fuller, then deep and knowing, the laugh of someone watching a perfect plan complete itself. The tortoise, letting each word land with weight, spoke. "Did I not warn you? Did I not stand on this very path, this very spot, and tell you to pray? Pray that the one whom people will believe should not tell lies against you. Do you see now, my friend? Do you understand what I meant?" The antelope stood very still. It heard the words, it remembered the conversation, but even now, even hearing the tortoise repeat those exact words, it did not connect them to what had happened. It did not suspect the tortoise had said anything to the lion. It did not imagine the tortoise had been near the lion at all. The warning felt like a strange coincidence, a prophecy perhaps, something the clever tortoise had simply foreseen. So the antelope stood in its pain and its confusion, nodding slowly, thinking the tortoise was wise, not knowing the tortoise was the architect. Before walking off, the tortoise said again, "Just pray, my friend, just pray." And the tortoise continued down the path, slowly, steadily, shell gleaming in the afternoon light, leaving the antelope to live in fear of the day the lion would return, still searching for a sweetness that did not exist, never knowing the lie had come from the small, slow creature it had never suspected. And so the antelope lived, limping and afraid, waiting for the day the lion would return with his impossible demand, carrying the wounds of a lie it never heard, suffering for a crime that was never committed, fearing a king who had been used as a weapon by a creature smaller than his paw. It could not defend itself from a lie it could not name, told by a mouth the lion trusted, about something the lion had actually tasted. That is the tortoise's genius and his crime. The tortoise walked free, satisfied, slow. But the law of this universe is not impressed by cleverness. It does not argue. It does not rush. It simply waits, as patient as the tortoise himself, until the moment arrives, and it always arrives. What you send out must return to you. That is the law, and the law does not sleep. For the tortoise, the lesson is coming. Maybe not today, maybe not in this season, but it is coming, the way the rains come after the drought, silently, inevitably, right on time. So be wise, be deliberate about what you set in motion, and in all things, consider the seeds you are planting today, because the seeds we plant today, we will one day harvest, every last one. If you think deeply enough, you may recognize that it is best to sow love, because it will return, whether it is accepted today, whether it is laughed at today, or whether it is misplaced today, the fine harvest must come back in your favor, for the universe never forgets. Not a single act, not a single one. So do everything with love in your heart. Do not wait for a thank you. Do not look for applause. Simply be love, now and always. In the long run, it is the truest approach to life. Thank you for sitting with me through this one. I'm Shelley, and this is The Fresh Perspective, where we take the wisdom the ancients left us and hold it up to the light of today. If this story stirred something in you, if you felt the weight of that warning the tortoise gave, if you found yourself thinking about who in your own life holds that kind of power over how others see you, then it has done its work. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, because that is what stories are for. They are not entertainment, they are medicine. Like, follow, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.